German mothers walked their children to school through the streets of Aachen, Germany, on June 6, 1945, for registration at the first public school to be opened by the US military government after the war. On September 11, 1946, some of Poland's thousands of war orphans receiving care from the Polish Red Cross at a Catholic orphanage in Lublin. 13,000 individuals who perished during the liberation of the Belsen concentration camp are buried in the new cemetery in Belsen, Germany, which opened on March 28, 1946. German women clearing up the debris on Berlin's Tauentzienstraße with the ruins of the Kaiser Wilhelm Church in the background after World War II, 1945. In March 1974, some 29 years after the official end of World War II, Haru Onoda, a former Japanese Army intelligence officer, walks out of the jungle of Lubang Island in the Philippines. Gaunt and emaciated, but happy at their release from Japanese captivity, two Allied prisoners packed their meager belongings after being freed near Yokohama, Japan, on September 11, 1945, by men of an American Mercy Squadron of the US Navy. The return of victorious Soviet soldiers at a railway station in Moscow in 1945. An aerial photograph of Hiroshima, Japan, 1 year after the atomic bombing, reveals a modest bit of repair among massive destruction, July 20th, 1946. A Japanese man amid the scorched wreckage and rubble that was once his home in Yokohama, Japan. Italian refugees labourers taken near the end of World War II in 1945. These individuals were awaiting transport home after being liberated from German and Austrian labour camps. Sudeten Germans make their way to the railway station in Liberec, in former Czechoslovakia, to be transferred to Germany in this July 1946. On the early morning of September 2nd, 1945, the veranda deck to starboard of the USS Missouri, anchored in Tokyo Bay, was prepared for the ceremony. A survivor of the first atomic bomb ever used in warfare, Junpei Terabama retains scars after the healing of burns from the bomb explosion in Hiroshima in June 1947. Disabled buses that have littered the streets of Tokyo are used to help relieve the acute housing shortage in the Japanese capital on October 2nd, 1946. Japanese who hauled the buses into a vacant lot are converting them into homes for their families. An American GI places his arm around a Japanese girl as they view the surroundings of Hibiya Park, near the Tokyo Palace of the Emperor, on January 21st, 1946. This is an aerial view of the City of London around St Paul's Cathedral, showing bomb-damaged areas in April 1945. Dinah Sanichar, known as the real-life Mowgli, real-life feral boy raised by wolves who may have inspired The Jungle Book, taken sometime between 1889 and 1894. A US soldier examines a solid gold statue, part of Hermann Göring's private loot, found by the 7th US Army in a mountainside cave near Schönau am Königssee, Germany, on May 25, 1945. In Europe, some churches have been completely ruined, but others still stand amid utter devastation. Mönchengladbach Cathedral stands here in the rubble, though still in need of repairs, seen in Germany on November 20th, 1945. A general view of the International Military Tribunal for the Far East meeting in Tokyo in April 1947. On May 3rd, 1946, the Allies began the trial of 28 Japanese civilian and military leaders for war crimes. 7 were hanged and others were sentenced to prison terms. North Korea's official Korean Central News Agency, Communist leader Kim Il-sung chats with a farmer from Chingshanli, Kangso County, South Pyongyang, in North Korea, October 1945. As security for the imports Japan needs, clocks are being prepared for export to Allied nations. 123,000 clocks were made in 34 Japanese firms in April 1946. The height of the Nazi air raid on Dover on July 29, 1940. An estimated 250,000 Germans gather before a ruined Reichstag building in an anti-communist rally in Berlin, Germany, September 9, 1948. After a German bombing strike, Russian civilians flee their own nation as refugees. Few people in the West still recognize the extent to which the war destroyed the lives of tens of millions of Soviet civilians. A group of boys play among the wreckage of a German air raid during the World War II. Children watch a pop-up movie to help them forget the Blitz's anguish. Polish soldiers on a train returning to Poland after World War II. A Polish man holds the deeds to the land he lost in Poland. German troops enter the Soviet Union, 1941. Women dig anti-tank ditches to help slow the Axis advance. The rise of US influence. After World War II, American flour being unloaded in Greece. Our mates at Attica State Prison in Attica, NY, raised their hands in clenched fists in a show of unity. September 1971, during the Attica Uprising, which took the lives of 43 people. President John F. Kennedy pushes away his coffee cup as he meets in the White House Cabinet Room with the Senate's leaders, September 9, 1963. Refugees in World War II. Bell System introduces picture phone service in 1964. A video telephone booth prototype demonstrating early attempts at visual communication technology in 1922. The sun-drenched shores and soaring waves of the 1960s and 1970s, an era when surf culture was more than a hobby, it was a lifestyle. Women surfboarders form a star as they lie on their huge hollow surfboards on Santa Monica Beach, circa 1935. Terry Fox running across Canada to raise money for cancer research, 1980. Soviet soldiers with lowered standards of the defeated Nazi forces during the Victory Day parade in Moscow on June 24, 1945. Hermann Göring, once the leader of the formidable Luftwaffe and the second in command of the German Reich under Hitler, appears in a mugshot on file with the Central Registry of War Criminals and Security Suspects in Paris, France, on November 5, 1945. Many of Germany's captured new and experimental aircraft displayed in an exhibition as part of London's Thanksgiving Week on September 14, 1945. Royal Welch Fusiliers assist in clearing bomb damage in Belfast, Northern Ireland, 7 May 1941. A group of British Honduran forestry workers finished work for the day on the pine-clad hills of East Lothian, Scotland, are seen talking to the manager, Mr. John Dunbar. Smouldering. Grain cascades slide into the river at Hull after the raid on the night of 7th-9th May 1941. A female factory worker fits exploders into rows of shells at this filling factory, 1943. Bevan Boy. Hubert Claude Morgan, aged 18, drives in a roof support at the coalface during his training at a colliery near Canterbury, 1943. Members of the WLA help a farmer to plough reclaimed fenland in Cambridgeshire. The deep digger plough, an international tractor being used, are ploughing 15 inches deep, 1939. British soldiers operate and inspect a coastal defence gun emplacement during World War II. Lively moment of unity and celebration among American servicemen and women during World War II, reflecting the strong morale, camaraderie, and shared sense of purpose among US military personnel amidst the global conflict. Palestinian refugees were displaced starting from the 1948 conflict with Israel. The United Nations now looks after around 5.1 million registered Palestinian refugees across some 60 camps in the Middle East. The Second World War led to 60 million displaced Germans, including 12 million who were forced to leave their homeland due to Poland's annexation of eastern borders. Estimates of the numbers of people displaced range widely, with anywhere from 1 million to more than 5 million forced to flee Korean War, 1950 to 53. By the end of the two-decade conflict, more than 3 million people were estimated to have been displaced. Many were later resettled in the US and China. The round table of the negotiation after World War II, Potsdam, Germany. Germany built its first metal plane after World War II, a four-seater with a 140 PSB 1500 engine built by Focke-Wulf in Bremen on April 23, 1956. In 1945, a German V-2 rocket damaged homes in southern England, exposing the interior due to censorship, a picture part of the PA Second World War. Stanley Internment Camp, a civilian internment camp in Hong Kong, held around 2,800 non-Chinese enemy nationals for 44 months after the Battle of Hong Kong. The camp was used by Japanese Imperial forces until August 1945, when they surrendered. Sergeant Ernest Docherty of the 1st Battalion King's Own Scottish Borderers, part of 3rd Infantry Division, composes a letter from his unit's tented camp at Denmead in Hampshire, 29th April 1944. After World War II, German women took on the difficult job of rebuilding the country, since many men were either dead or prisoners. They were known as Trümmerfrauen, meaning rubble women. The Great Depression was a severe global economic downturn from 1929 to 1939. George Blind, a captured French maquisard, laughs at a mock execution in Belfort Prison, 1944. A Stoic officer, Cadet Gunther Billing, is captured and prepared for execution on December 18, 1944. He shouted "Heil Hitler" as the firing squad shot. Billing posed as an American G1 at a roadblock. He was one of 2,000 Germans who disguised themselves as American troops and caused chaos behind Allied lines. Nieves Fernandez, a Filipina guerrilla leader during World War II, 1944. Hitler poses in Lederhosen, 1927. He ordered that this photo be hidden from the public. Anti-Japanese racism was so bad during Dwaretipolten that Chinese Americans had to wear labels. American soldier with German prisoners, World War II. German Wehrmacht. General Anton Dostler is tied to a stake before his execution by a firing squad in a stockade in Aversa, Italy, on December 1st, 1945. The Netherlands celebrates 70 years since the end of World War II on May 5th. But, of course, the war did not end in a day. Dutch people stripped the tram rails out of the street to use for firewood. This was the last year of the war, a desperate time of scant food and resources known as the Hunger Winter, 1944 to 45. Dutch women being publicly humiliated for collaborating with German soldiers during World War II. People seek shelter behind lampposts at Dam Square, Amsterdam, after German troops opened fire at the celebrating masses. 22 killed, 120 injured. Europe in the aftermath of World War II. Oswald Mosley and his black shirts marched to stir up hatred against British Jews and communists, 1936. In May 1940, Nazis invaded the Netherlands. Some Dutch citizens supported them and honoured the troops with Nazi salutes. These supporters, called NSBers, were collaborators and spied for the Nazis. Members of the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company leave Victoria Station, London, for a tour of Holland, May 1940. Director Nanette de Valois is on the far right. A 5-year research project will examine East Asia's emergence and struggle for self-definition after the fall of the Japanese Empire. Red Army soldiers inspect Nazi equipment captured after the last pockets of resistance in the Donbass had been crushed. A Soviet soldier raises the Soviet flag over the Reichstag during the Battle of Berlin. Heinrich Himmler addresses German troops, July 1944. Soviet soldier taking stock of captured Japanese equipment. American GIs shell advancing PLA soldiers outside Shanghai. American soldiers in the Chinese countryside US infantrymen go northward against a line of fleeing refugees as they march into the Naktong River region in South Korea during the Korean. A war-weary Korean girl walks by a stalled M26 tank with her baby brother on her back. Korean Peninsula, June 1951. Women with placards demonstrating against the Korean War in London. The Berlin airlift was the first major conflict of the Cold War. Democratic and Republican presidents passed through the White House during the decades of conflict. A napalm raid hit the village 3 or 4 days ago when the Chinese were holding up the advance, and nowhere in the village have they buried the dead because there is nobody left to do so. A Chinese village destroyed by American airplanes. The Queen Emma Monument is festooned with flowers on Carnation Day, 1940. The last picture taken of Anne, Edith, and Margot Frank in Germany, prior to emigrating to Holland. Anne is 3 years, 9 months old. They are standing in the Hauptwache Square in the centre of Frankfurt am Main, March 1933. February 1st, 1933. After Hitler becomes Chancellor, the SA rounds up suspected communists. The Ten Boom family lived above their watch shop in Haarlem, in the Netherlands. The Duchess and Duke of Windsor, New York, 1957. Women accused of being Nazi collaborators are humiliated after the liberation of France, 1944. US Marines of the 28th Regiment, 5th Division, raised the American flag atop Mount Suribachi, Iwo Jima, February 23, 1945. A US Air Force C-54 Skymaster comes in for a landing at Tempelhof Air Base during the Soviet blockade of Berlin, 1948. Anti-Franco militiaman Federico Borrell Garcia at the moment of his death during the Spanish Civil War, September 5, 1936. Victorious presidential candidate Harry Truman poses with an erroneous Dewey defeats Truman headline, November 2nd, 1948. The hunger winter of 1947. Thousands protest against the disastrous food situation. The sign says, "We want coal, we want bread." 31st March, 1947. In 1947, General George C. Marshall meets with Russian Foreign Minister Andrei Vyshinsky in Moscow, joined by advisor John Foster Dulles.